Remember this, there are some terrible times coming in the last days. People will love only themselves and money. They will be proud and boast about themselves. They will abuse others with insults. They will not obey their parents. They will be ungrateful against all that is pleasing to God. They will have no love for others and will refuse to forgive anyone. They will talk about others to hurt them and will have no self-control.
They will be cruel and hate what is good. People will turn against their friends. They will do foolish things without thinking and will be so proud of themselves. Instead of loving God, they will love pleasure. They will go on pretending to be devoted to God, but they will refuse to let that devotion change the way they live. Stay away from these people.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies, for reading. So, there was a news story a few years ago, and it was about a mom named Nicole Allen from Dayton, Ohio, and she had purchased a gift for her 2-year-old daughter at a dollar store. And you go next slide, there it is, that's a picture of it. The toy was a princess wand topped with a flower petal, right? No big deal, right? The cardboard package featured a smiling anime-looking girl and labeling the toy as suitable for ages 3 and up. 3 and up. So the back of the package promised buyers that the toy can send out wonderful music. So Nicole bought the thing. She didn't even notice the name of the toy behind the playful font and the graphics. And the toy's name was actually called the Evil Stick. And it was not until Nicole got home that she discovered why that was the name. Instead of playing beautiful music, when she pushed the button, it activated a creepy laugh. And at the same time, an internal LED illuminated a piece of transparent foil, that foil you see there. A light was inside of that foil, and so when the light went on, it revealed an image on the inside of an evil-eyed woman who was slitting her wrists. Nicole contacted the dollar store, and the owner defended the toy and chose to leave the toy on the shelf. Gibby, can you give sound to the computer? I'm going to show you a video of the actual toy. Here's what it looks like. So I tell you about that story because it's a good illustration of what Paul is talking about in our passage today. Right? Paul said, there are some terrible times coming in the last days. You can go next slide there. Terrible times coming in the last days. In the last days, evil is going to be rampant, but hidden. Now, in mythology, there is a common element that wards off evil. Like, think about like monsters, right? Like fake, fictional monsters, right? One of those elements that wards off monsters is salt, right? In the movies, you probably remember salt repels vampires. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably remember they pour the salt across the windowsill or the door frame, right? And then the vampire can't cross. So salt in mythology is also used to break spells of witches or keep them from entering your home. Of course, that is all just folklore, but spiritually speaking, Jesus called us to be salt of the earth, right? You see, in Bible times, the purpose of salt was not just to give your meat flavor. It was actually a preservative to work against the natural decay and corruption and keep the meat fresh. Guys, I want you to think about that description because that is what Christians are supposed to do for our culture. We are supposed to be a preserving, purifying influence on an evil culture. Salt does no good when it just sits in the salt shaker. It needs to be used. So here's my first question that I want you to ponder and answer at your tables. Some churches teach that Christians should retreat from the world, stay away from the evil influences of the world. But how should Jesus' teaching on salt and light change that perspective? Go ahead and share your thoughts at your tables. I'm going to give you like 3 minutes to do that. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to finish your thoughts. So, in our passage, I want you to understand that our passage is just a general description of the last days. It says there's going to be terrible times, people are going to be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, right? It's hard to use this as evidence that we're in the last days. But there's one aspect of the description here that is unique. Guys, there have been a lot of evil generations throughout history, right? Like, take the Nazis, for instance. The difference between the Nazis and this end times generation is that the Nazis were obviously evil, right? The whole world knew that the Nazis were evil. It was the same with Stalin's Russia, Mao's China, the Mongolians, the Assyrians, the Aztecs, modern day North Korea, right? They were all outwardly evil. But this end times generation that we read about in our passage today is going to be evil in disguise. Sort of like the evil stick, right? It's an evil generation that puts on the mask of innocence and paints sin in the color of virtue. What does that sound like? What nation? Guys, we are the wealthiest, most technologically advanced society that has ever lived on the face of the earth. The packaging of our society, the outward appearance of society, is beautiful and charming, right? Everybody wants to come here. But the truth is that a hidden evil is lurking just below the surface. Guys, I love my country, but I need to be honest that our country has gone astray. However, like the evil stick, it's hidden, and most people don't even notice. One of those indicators that we can look toward is abortion. Abortion is one of the strongest indicators of corruption, right? Although it's not obvious because it happens in secret, right? Most of us have no idea of how big of a problem it is. It's not until we sit in a church service like this and we hear the statistics on it that we even know that it's a problem, right? And we don't do that very often. We just don't talk about these things often. But let me tell you some of the stories, the things that are coming out of our country. Most of you have probably never heard about this. A little while ago, voters in Montana chose to reject something called the Born Alive Ballot Initiative. And this is what they were asked. They were asked if a botched abortion results in a baby being born alive, should the baby receive medical treatment? The majority of voters in Montana said no. They were in favor of mothers and doctors throwing a live baby in the trash and letting it die. Our nation is utterly corrupt, but we hide behind manicured lawns and white picket fences. Guys, last year, right before the presidential election, the Democrats coordinated with Planned Parenthood to host a mobile abortion truck right outside of their convention. And every single time slot available was booked solid the entire time. Now, as usual, the news media tried to cover for them, and they claimed that the abortion truck was completely independent of the convention. But guys, that is simply not true. If the Democratic Party did not want it there, it would not have been there. If they did want it, it was there because they wanted it there. And I'm not here to tear down one party over the other. The Republican Party has problems as well. They just didn't have an abortion truck at their convention. That is horrible. We look at the Nazis as the most evil generation or the evil society because they killed 12 million people in extermination camps. Guys, listen to that number. The Nazis, everybody condemns the Nazis. They killed 12 million people in extermination camps. We have done far, far worse. We've just hidden it. We've just cloaked our language. We say things like, oh, it's just a fetus. Not realizing that the word fetus is actually the Latin for baby. And people think that's something other than a baby, just because they use a foreign word, a Latin word. We have murdered 64 million babies in the last 50 years. Guys, that is almost 20% of our population. We have murdered 1/3 of Generation Z. Deep down, people who support abortion know that it's murder, they just don't care. If we still have sound gives, I just want you to listen to this video clip by Bill Maher, and we'll listen to what he says.
I scold the left when they say, oh, you know what, they just hate women. People who aren't pro-life, pro-choice, they don't hate women. They just made that up. they think it's murder. And it kind of is. I'm just okay with that. I am. I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. I'm sorry, we won't miss you. That's my position on it.
They don't often say it out loud like that. But I tell you, the elites, like the Bill Maher's of the world, all know that. They all know it's murder. They just don't care. Guys, our country looks like princess wands and flowers on the outside, but is evil to the core behind the scenes. It is the evil stick. And that is what Paul is talking about in our passage. That's what makes really general signs unique. This whole description matches us as a society to a T. Here's my second question for you guys to answer at your tables. Is our culture really worse than the Nazis, Nazi Germany? If so, how? If not, why? Go ahead and answer that at your tables. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to finish up your thoughts. All right. If you could wind down your conversations. So what I'd like to do is briefly take a look at each characteristic of the end times generation that leads up to the tribulation so that we're able to discern the times. So check out number 1 here on the screen. All right, number 1 is this generation will be unloving. Unloving. Verse 2 says people will love only themselves and money. All right? Those two go hand in hand, right? Because if you are a lover of self, then you are also a lover of money. Does that describe our generation? Yes, right? How do you know if somebody loves money? It's all they think about, it's all they talk about. They hoard it, right? Yeah. So the statistics on this are pretty sad about our generation. Listen to this, guys. More than half of adults in our country give nothing at all to charity. Nothing. If we compare that to a third world country like Indonesia, 60% of their population lives below the poverty line. And yet 90% of the people in Indonesia give to charity. And if you average everything out, Americans give less than 1% of their income to charity, even though we're the wealthiest nation to ever exist. The rest of the world does slightly better at just above 1%. But that's not good either. The whole thing is sad. And it's sad that the rest of the world beats us as a nation. Our society pretends to care, but does little to nothing to bless others. The church is supposed to be different. And guys, I think that, yes, I think true believers are different. But there is a large portion of the church pretending to be devoted to God. Like Paul says in verse 5. Right? I think I have it on. Yeah, there it is. And a large portion is pretending. Because we should be the most generous people. But statistics indicate that only 5 to 10% of Christians give what God asks us to give. They have a form of godliness that elevates money over God's priorities. Let's make sure that we get out of the salt shaker. Or we don't do any good sitting in the salt shaker. Sitting in the salt shaker means keeping everything that you make for yourself. All right? We need to make a difference. We need to preserve, that's what salt does, preserves generosity in our culture. I love what many of you did with the food pantry while the SNAP benefits were on hold. That's an example of being salt. All right? Do things like that. Here's number 2. Unhumble. Unhumble. Verse 2 says they will be proud and boast about themselves. Right? There's never been a society, I think, that is more prideful than ours. Now, I'm not even really talking about the whole LGBTQ stuff in this lesson, but I just want to point out that our society has literally turned the mother of all sins into a virtue. That's how prideful we are. That we've taken pride, right? Pride, the thing that caused Satan to rebel against God. We've taken that and turned it into something good. Right? Pride Month. You know, proud to be an American. I'm proud of my kids. That word is not a good word. It's a sin. And we use it. Guys, if there's anything that I could tell you that I hope you get out of this lesson tonight, stop using the word pride in a good way. It's not a good word. Our society has turned it into a good word. I didn't look this up. Somebody look this up for me later. Go to the dictionary and see if they've changed the word pride into something good. I'm really curious to know that now. I bet they have in the dictionary. It's a sin. Pick a different word instead of pride, right? You know, I'm excited about what you accomplished. That's a great replacement word. Hey, you got A's this semester. I'm really excited about that. You don't have to say I'm proud of you, right? Just use different language. So notice that all of this is hidden, right? It's hidden because people don't even realize it's wrong to be prideful. They think it's a good thing. We need to realize that we're all prideful. Are you guys prideful? Sometimes, right? If you don't think you're prideful, then answer me this question. When somebody takes a group picture that you're part of, who is the first person you look at? Yourself. There you go, Frank. All of us do it. And if you look good in that picture, you're like, that's a great picture, send that one to me, right? Even if everybody else looks terrible, like Micah's got snot running down his nose, right? MVP's sleeping, Todd's deformed feet are showing in the picture, right? There we go, there's Todd's deformed feet. Oh, that's nasty, nasty. But if you look good, it's a keeper, right? But if you look bad, you're like, hey, hold on, everybody, wait, come back, come back. The lighting wasn't right. Let's get it, let's try it again, right? We need to be salt. We need to preserve humility in our culture. How do we preserve humility? We take off our masks and confess our sin to one another. Guys, I want every single one of you to think about this. Ask yourself this question. Have you confessed any sin to a friend in the last month? Don't answer it out loud. It's all right if you did. I just want you to think about it. Because if you have not, your salt might just be sitting in the salt shaker doing no good. Here's number 3. That generation is going to be unkind. In verse 2 and 3, Paul says they will abuse others with insults. They will talk about others to hurt them. They will be cruel. Guys, there was a study published by the Social, Psychological, and Personality Science Journal where they had participants wear portable recording devices, and then researchers analyzed the conversations. This is really interesting. They found that the average person spent 52 minutes a day gossiping. 52 minutes a day. Guys, that is horrifying. Almost an hour of our day is dedicated to gossip. But again, the evil of unkind words is hidden because most people believe that it's just not a big deal. As long as they're just dishing it out and not on the receiving end, it's not a big deal. Listen to this quote from Psychology Today about gossip. They said this. Next slide here. In the vast majority of cases, they contend it's beneficial. Gossip serves important social and psychological functions. It's a unifying force that communicates a group's moral code. It's the social glue that holds us all to get together. Guys, that's insane. That is Psychology Today that came up with that. That is what the world thinks about gossip. That it's really a good thing, the glue that holds the community together. That's messed up. We as the church need to be salt. We need to preserve compassion and love and help our culture turn toward kindness. Now, I'm not telling you that you need to be the gossip police. I think that's annoying when Christians are the gossip police. You should never be in a conversation where you have to say, oh, this is gossip. I don't want to hear any more of this, right? If you suspect that the person you're talking to is gossiping, just say, hey, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that our friend was struggling. We should go and talk to her about that. I guarantee you guys that if this person is sharing news out of a bad heart, they're not going to go with you, and they probably will not be gossiping with you in the future. Right? That's all you got to do. I can't, really? She did that? Well, we should go and talk to her. We can't just let her continue on in that sin. You and I, right now, let's go talk to her. Right? If that person does and says, yeah, that's a good idea, let's go talk, then maybe she's coming out of a good heart, or maybe he's coming out of a good heart, and go and do that. Go and help the person, all right? But if not, if they're coming about it from a bad heart, they will think twice before speaking any unkind words to you in the future. Here's number 4, unsubmissive. Unsubmissive. In verse 2, Paul says they will not obey their parents. They will not obey their parents. I want you to see the statistics here in the next slide. According to statistics, about 70% of teenagers have sex before marriage. 45% try drugs at some point. About 40% text while driving. Studies show that about 98% of teenagers lie to their parents. It's hidden, in a sense, because it doesn't seem as big of a deal in this generation. We almost expect, right? Like, we expect teenagers to have sex these days. We expect teenagers to smoke weed. Why? Because typical parents are doing all that stuff, right? Parents are sexually immoral. Parents are smoking weed. Parents are lying to avoid consequences. Guys, Christians, we're supposed to be salt, preserving obedience instead of joining our culture. Just because they made it legal doesn't mean it's right. It's wrong. How do we do this? We model better things for our kids. Listen to this. This is important. Studies suggest that when teens feel respected and see that their parents model their values consistently, they are much more likely to obey. Now that sort of seems like a no-brainer, right? But it's not happening much in the church. We need to change that. We need to be salt. Here's number 5. They will be ungrateful. In verse 2, Paul said, they will be ungrateful. This is one I'm not sure about because there was a survey conducted by one poll that indicated that 83% of people try to practice gratitude on a daily basis. Well, that's awesome. You're like, cool. But is it true? Because that is really just a measure of what people think of themselves, right? It's not really a measurable statistic. It's just people's perception of themselves. And who doesn't think that they're grateful? If I did a poll in Tozer, probably everybody would be like, yeah, I'm a grateful person. But if you look at the statistics on the decline of handwritten thank you cards, it's massive, massive. A poll of millennials found that almost 60% never, ever sent a thank you card. Never. So, after our Gibson, yes. Gibson said, what's a card? So, yeah. My grandma would send a thank you card for everything, right? Like, if somebody sent her a thank you card, like, she'd send a thank you card. Thank you for such a nice thank you card, right? But, my generation didn't get that, right? It takes a lot for me to send out a thank you card. And Gibson's generation is like, Gib, yes.
We still didn't even give out our marriage thank you.
Your wedding thank you cards? All right, well, this lesson is for you then, Gibby. So after service, sometimes we play a game called Love Letters. And there is a rule in the game that the person who wrote a handwritten letter most recently goes first. And most of the time, none of us at the table can remember when was the last time we wrote a handwritten letter, right? Now, I know that that's just anecdotal evidence, but it coincides with the statistics. We need to be salt in our culture and preserve gratitude by expressing seen it in measurable ways. Guys, send a thank you note. Hey, how about this? How about at your Thanksgiving dinner this year? Why don't one of you at your Thanksgiving dinner say, hey everybody, why don't we share what we're thankful for? It is Thanksgiving after all. Right? Do people actually do that? All right, here's number 6. Ungodliness. Ungodliness. In verse 2 and 3, Paul says, they will be against all that is pleasing to God. They will be cruel and hate what is good. That is an absolutely accurate description of our culture. Our culture calls evil good and good evil all the time. There are so many examples of this. Let me just mention one. At the 2024 Olympic opening ceremony, they had a drag queen version of the Last Supper painting. You all heard about this, right? Now, there should have been universal outrage over it, but many people defended it. So they just didn't care. Even some Christians I know personally made excuses for it. On top of the messaging of it all, they included a child in it, right there. Now, guys, I usually abide by my own rule. Like, I have rules for myself when I'm doing a church service, right? Like, I try to keep my church services testicle-free. But you guys have seen this picture before. This guy right here, his balls are hanging out. Right? With this kid sitting at the table. Not to mention the guy in the middle, right there, covered with some leaves in front of a kid. It's crazy. And of course, the media tried to cover it up again. They claimed that Short Shorts guys, his wardrobe malfunction was just an optical illusion. That's what they said. Just an optical illusion. And even if that is the case, do you know how many times they practiced this whole thing? They made it, if it's an optical illusion, they made it look like that on purpose. Our society is clearly against everything that is pleasing to God. Corrupting children, right? Corrupting children. It's terrible. The church needs to be salt. The church needs to preserve godliness. We need to call out evil while at the same time pointing people toward forgiveness in Christ. Here's number 7. This generation will be unforgiving. In verse 3, Paul said they will have no love for others and will refuse to forgive anyone. Now, it's hard to find statistics on unforgiveness, right? Because it's more of a heart attitude. But think of it like this, guys. When is the last time someone came to you and asked for your forgiveness? Can anybody in here remember anybody asking for your forgiveness in the last month? Just raise your hand if you can remember that. Okay, so 2 people in the room. All right, 3, 4, because they said each other. All right, nice, good. Can anybody remember somebody asking for your forgiveness in the last year? Like they came to you and said, will you forgive me? I did this to you. And you would raise your hand if you remember somebody in the last year. Okay, a few more hands go up. Far less than half of the room, right? Maybe like 20% of the room. People don't ask for forgiveness these days, nor do they give it. The church needs to be salt, preserving forgiveness. So, who do you need to ask to forgive you, or who do you need to forgive? Here's the last one, number 8. They will be undisciplined. In verse 3 and 4, Paul says they will have no self-control and they will love pleasure. One area that just came to my mind to talk about people being undisciplined, a lack of self-control, is road rage. Guys, road rage shootings are up since 2014 by 400%. The day that I wrote this lesson, believe it or not, there was a road rage shooting right outside of my old neighborhood. Did you hear about that? Yeah. Fatal crashes because of road rage have tripled. 96% of people have witnessed an act of road rage in the last 6 months. Now, there are tons of other examples, right? Examples of a lack of self-control, people being undisciplined. People spend more money than they make. People live paycheck to paycheck because they just gotta have stuff. Overeating, procrastinating, binge watching, that series on TV, doom scrolling, the list just goes on and on and on. Guys, we need to be salt by preserving discipline, especially spiritual discipline. Have you been setting goals based on the Reach rhythms? That's spiritual discipline. That's how we preserve discipline. That's how we keep self-control in our lives. Practice self-control by setting limits on your pleasure. Right? We're supposed to limit pleasure, not make it a god. Just like that, next slide here, just like that dollar store princess wand contained a hidden evil, our culture is plagued by an evil festering just below the surface. We all do a pretty good job of hiding it by wearing the mask of shining happy people, right? The craziest part of the evil stick story was that after the story went public, people flooded the dollar store and bought every remaining evil stick to sell on eBay. And people on eBay paid upwards of $200 for an evil stick. Guys, that is the way that our society treats evil. They're drawn to it like a moth to the flame. So are we this generation? Are we the 2 Timothy 3 generation? If the shoe fits. All I know, guys, is that God wants us to be salt, to preserve a godly influence in our culture. Are you doing that? So here's my action step. It's going to take up the whole screen. I would recommend that you take your phone out and take a picture of this slide. If you are somebody that does practice the action steps, because you're not going to remember this one, what I want you to do is to put one of the suggestions from our main point into practice. That's my goal for you. In the next week, pick one to put into practice. What I love is if on week 2, you picked a different one, put that in practice. In week 3, put another one in practice. But I'm just asking you to start out by doing one. And here's what they are. Number 1 is unloving. So we need to preserve love by donating. So maybe donate to our food bank this week, right? I imagine, is that going to go through the end of the month? Through the end of the month. SNAP benefits are coming back at some point here. So our food bank is going to go through the end of the month. So donate something to it, or come up with another way of giving of your money. Number 2, unhumble. Preserve humility by confessing a sin to a friend. I'm just going to tell you guys, if there's anyone that nobody's going to pick, it's that one, right? Nobody's going to pick that one. Maybe you will, because I just said nobody's going to pick it. Number 3, unkind. Preserve kindness by redirecting gossip and speaking life. Number 4 was unsubmissive. Preserve submission by modeling right behavior for our kids. Number 5, ungrateful. Preserve gratitude by sending a thank you card. Number 6, ungodliness. Preserve godliness by telling others about Jesus. Number 7, unforgiving. Preserve forgiveness by telling someone you forgive them or asking someone for forgiveness. Number 8, undisciplined. Preserve discipline by setting a goal to live out one of the reach rhythms. All right, I'm going to ask our band to come on back up, but you guys can answer a question while the band's getting ready. In what ways is hidden evil more dangerous than out in the open evil? So go ahead and share your thoughts on that.